Well, today turned out to be a randomly very exciting day because out of nowhere, we got yet another update about Metroid Dread from Nintendo. That's right, we got more of the goods coming because there is Metroid Dread information to discuss once again, and man, it's more great stuff. It just seems like Nintendo is so focused on very carefully doling out new, exciting information, updates, teasers, trailers, footage, all these crazy things. Today was a very busy day. We got a brand new teaser, we got a brand new Dread report, and we even got a promise of a new upcoming game trailer. So there is a lot of stuff to discuss and break down from all of these updates today, and I do want to discuss all of it. However, we're not going to get to all of it in this video. There's just a couple of key things that I want to really focus in on today's discussion. It is very exciting. We're obviously focused on a lot of the footage from the little teaser trailer that they showed us, which didn't really feature any gameplay. It was more about story context, exposition, setup for the journey and the adventure of what Samus is going on, and a couple of other much bigger clues that are also dropped within this teaser. And then there are one or two specific things from the Dread report that I want to discuss with you guys as well. There's some other exciting stuff we're not talking about today that I personally perceive as representative of Metroid Other M and how that story has an impact on the larger Metroid universe, and that of course is a divisive topic because people don't like that game. They want to convince themselves that the game is not canon just because they don't like it. Different conversation for a different video, but I do want to focus on those other things today because it is all very exciting. Also, I can finally say that as of this past week, I finally crossed 17,000 subscribers on YouTube, which I am so excited about, so happy about, very proud of, and I thank you guys. That was the goal I set for myself right at the beginning of this year, 2021, and I managed to cross it in August. I was just hoping to do it before the end of December, and I managed to do it in August. So in many ways, that's thanks to you guys. I really do appreciate it. Of course, I am still continuing to try to grow the channel here. Obviously, 20K is probably my next big goal. Maybe I can hit that sometime next year. So as you guys know, I upload several videos every single week. I discuss all things Nintendo. I cover every single little thing about Metroid possible, and I discuss all things gaming. So, as you watch the video, if you seem to like what I'm doing and what you hear, then I hope you will consider subscribing to the channel. Alrighty, so let's get into breaking down some of this trailer. And like I said, this is really focused on exposition and story. They're talking about the X-Parasite, they're explaining the Galactic Federation finding a signal on planet ZDR, Samus being sent to the planet by the Galactic Federation, so they have not yet splintered apart, and none of that drama has unfolded, even though we've had many glimpses throughout Other M and Fusion to let us know that the Galactic Federation is up to no good. Currently, going into Metroid Dread, Samus is still working with/for them and going to ZDR to research what's been going on. We also see some really cool glimpses of the Adam AI computer talking to Samus, using the phrasing lady, which of course continues to double down on Fusion and Other M and all of the story plot threads there. And we see some really cool Chozo imagery once we get to the planet. Now, I think beyond the X-Parasite stuff, the Emmy robot stuff, and the Galactic Federation relationship between Samus and them that I already discussed, the other big takeaway that I think a lot of us are pretty focused on is it seems like they're giving us a bit of a window into how this game's overall opening structure is going to be. And what could be happening is, as Samus is flying to planet ZDR and landing on planet ZDR, maybe they're telling us that somehow or somewhere within the landing process, something happens that makes Samus lose her power. Because between this and the most recent teaser from last week, the big thing we've noticed is we've now seen Samus's suit look different than what we initially saw when the game was revealed. And of course, I should let a lot of you know who maybe don't follow me on Twitter that one of the reasons I didn't call out the change in her suit in the last video is because I actually happen to be really colorblind, and believe it or not, it just didn't jump out at me that her suit was a different color and looked slightly different. I could tell something was off and different about it, but I was so focused on everything else in the trailer that I didn't pay too much attention to it, and my eyes don't just notice things like a difference in color, I think, the same way other people do. You know, I'm 41, I've been living with it my whole life, and that's just a trend I've noticed, so that's the only way I can explain it. But I became aware of it, you know, way after the fact, and I was like, oh my god, her suit's a totally different color, look at this. And now that I know it, I can kind of compare the two and see the difference. And so what we learned in the last trailer is that as Samus continues to heal, and whatever the battle between the Metroid DNA and the X-Parasite within her, as that continues to rage on, her suit continues to transform from the fusion suit back into her original power suit. So we've seen her with kind of like the mixed color suit from the original trailer. We've seen her suit looking more evolved and closer to the original power suit. And in this trailer, we see more of that initially, where she's in the ship, flying to planet ZDR, responding to that distress beacon, and her suit is more of the original power suit kind of transformation. But then the trailer immediately cuts to that shot of her laying down, unconscious, on the ground, and her suit has now reverted back to the version that's like in between the fusion suit and the more advanced version that's closer to the power suit. So what a lot of us can infer from this is that somewhere in the landing process or early on her arrival to planet ZDR, something happens to her that sets her back, probably makes her lose a bunch of her powers, and maybe even reverts her power suit back a little bit more closer to the fusion suit. So she's back into that kind of in-between form of her suit, which also says a lot about Samus herself and kind of where her whole journey is, like, personally within herself. And so maybe this is how they follow up on the standard Metroid trope of Samus loses her powers in the beginning and has to get them back throughout the journey. That could be what we're seeing. It's hard to put it together completely because when you look at the footage from the last teaser where she's got the more advanced version of her suit, she's stumbling across these Chozo imagery and all these different things happening, it's like, when within this process does she really lose her power, if that's what's going on? When in this journey does her suit take a step backwards and de-evolve itself into that in-between state? Is it during the landing? Is it after she lands and stumbles across the Chozo imagery and then she becomes unconscious and wakes up this way? Or is this something that happens because something goes wrong during the landing process and she just wakes up because her ship got like struck by lightning or something and she lost her power and her suit reverts? It's hard to say. We can only kind of put pieces together so much, but this teaser just gives us more of a glimpse into what could be happening. And now what's also really cool here is as we see her wake up from being unconscious and we see that her suit has now reverted itself back to, you know, the in-between form, she wakes up, she looks around, and then immediately notices this really dope-looking, I don't know, Chozo temple of some kind, or Chozo artifact. I mean, this is clearly a building with a door. That to me looks like it's like a Chozo face or a Chozo head right in the center. And those two big round orbs on the side basically look like the shoulder pads to the power suit, which we know is technology the Chozo themselves created, and the hieroglyphic wall has even showed us that they would wear. So you've got like a Samus-looking Chozo-created power suit shoulder pads, and then you've got a Chozo head in the middle. Like, this is like some sort of building or a temple or a hut the Chozo built that is meant to look like a Chozo wearing the power suit. That's what this looks like to me. It's got the head, it's got the shoulder pads. It's very cool, and I want to know all about this. I think my overall theory based on these last two teasers is that what ultimately happens is, and as this trailer also kind of lets us know, the Galactic Federation gets a report from ZDR that the X-Parasite might still be alive, even though they thought Samus destroyed them in Metroid Fusion. They send the Emmy robots to ZDR to handle it and extract it and do whatever they need to do. The Emmy robots go missing and they go rogue, so they send Samus to check it out and see what's going on. She lands on the planet with her power suit close to being completed and fixed. She comes across the Chozo hieroglyphic wall and some other things, and very early on, once she steps foot off of her ship on planet ZDR, something happens, knocks her out, after she's already discovered that the Chozo are somehow related to planet ZDR, wakes up in a de-evolved state with less powers, sees this Chozo building in some way, walks through the door of this Chozo building, and then her journey on ZDR will officially start. She's got to collect her power-ups, she has to fight the Emmy robots, and she has to start to heal herself and heal her power suit. Until we get more information, as of August 20th, 2021, that is my personal prediction on how this game begins. there's a lot of reason to believe that's true. I mean, these two teasers have given us a lot of information. I mean, this teaser alone gives us actual text to show us what's going on. Again, it also touches on the Adam AI robot and that relation to Samus, and I think that's a bigger conversation for a different video. So make no mistake, I'm not glossing over that. I just don't have time to go into that yet, and I'm going to do that sometime next week. But that's the main takeaway I have from all of this stuff. And now I do also want to talk about a couple of cool things in today's Dread Report. The Metroid Dread Report Volume 5, The Power of Samus. This one is very exciting because it's obviously focusing on Samus herself, the character, some of her journey so far, and mostly what we can expect her to be able to do and what she's going to play like in this game. And they do give a lot of newcomers some kind of context for why she has certain abilities or powers or strengths. They talk about and reconfirm the fact that she's had a Chozo DNA blood transfusion of some type, so she's got that Chozo DNA within her. Most of us Metroid nerds already know this, but Nintendo has to continue to sort of relay this information to newcomers. And they explain a lot of her abilities, upgrading her suit, upgrading her beam, upgrading the missiles, you know, the ability to use the melee attack. She can do the free aim while running, as opposed to having to stand still like she did in Samus Returns. Tons of great stuff like this is littered throughout this Dread Report, and I obviously highly recommend that you read it. Now, like I said, there is some information in this Dread Report that further links the Metroid franchise and Metroid Dread specifically to Metroid Other M, and of course also Metroid Fusion, part of that other larger conversation for a different video. But the one really cool thing that I want to talk about here is this transmission from the dev team that talks about the X-Parasite a little bit, but then also doubles down on a huge aspect of Samus's character and her kind of overall physiology and her biological makeup that very much confirms a lot of the theories and conversations I've been having with you guys in the weeks since Metroid Dread was announced. It's very exciting. It's great to see it actually confirmed in writing from Nintendo, so people know that I haven't been crazy the past 2 months as I've talked about it. And so, let's look at what they say. The X-Parasite is a terrifying creature capable of infesting any living thing, causing it to die, and then mimicking its host using the genetic information it copies. It's no exaggeration to say that the X is the strongest and most odious of life forms, as it instinctively prioritizes the preservation and expansion of its species, repeatedly dividing and merging to mimic stronger individuals. And here, of course, is the really good stuff. They say, however, the only thing that can nullify its ability is the Metroid, which was created to be its natural enemy. Since the Metroid went extinct prior to the events of Metroid Dread, the only one who can rival the X is Samus, as she now has Metroid DNA in her. You guys, this is so huge and so cool and so exciting, and obviously, selfishly, I like this because, you know, to me, I already knew this. I think most of us Metroid fans should have already known this. But in many of my previous videos and theories and discussions where I constantly reference the fact that part of Samus's genetic makeup is Metroid DNA, many people pushed back. And I understand why, but I kind of just knew that that wasn't correct, and now Nintendo has confirmed that this whole time I was right, and yes, Samus does have Metroid DNA in her. So essentially this all goes back to Metroid Fusion, where of course she discovers and is infected by the X-Parasite in the beginning of that game, and in order to save her life, they create a Metroid vaccine built out of Metroid DNA. They give that to her. It saves her from being basically killed and defeated and replicated by the X. And suddenly, she's just suddenly good to go, and she can even absorb X-Parasite without actually being damaged. It literally made her immune to the X-Parasite and the X-Parasite's true natural enemy, because in theory, Metroids are extinct, but Samus has the Metroid vaccine in her, so she can fight and absorb and not be killed by the X. Now, to me, that plot thread of Samus being infected by Metroid DNA and being able to combat and destroy the X-Parasite gave the writers completely free rein to do whatever they wanted with that part of the story. And part of what that meant to me was that they could basically say Samus still has the Metroid DNA within her and is in fact even part Metroid. That has to be the reason she can fight and destroy the X-Parasite, and why the X-Parasite can't actually hurt or kill her. It made way too much sense, and so plenty of my theories, including my personal favorite theory about Samus actually being the last Metroid herself, were built on the premise that she has Metroid DNA as a part of her genetic makeup because of the Metroid vaccine. Now, a lot of the pushback people gave me was that that's not how vaccines work. If you get the COVID vaccine, you're not part COVID now. And it's like, okay, I understand that thought, but I think that people have been forgetting that this is fiction. It's just a video game. It's a made-up story. And on top of that, it's science fiction where none of the real rules of life apply. And beyond that, if you just kind of chart the way the events of the Metroid saga have played out and the way the writers have constantly used different aspects to tell their story and to change Samus throughout the games, I thought it was completely in play for them to say that just getting a Metroid vaccine in this science fiction made-up video game world meant she could then also be part Metroid. It made a lot of sense to me, and it clearly made sense to Nintendo and to Mercury Steam, because we now have confirmation that that is in fact true. And so now we have to ask the questions, what does this mean? Just like I pretty much end all of my Metroid theory videos and breakdown videos is what does this all mean for the future? What does this mean for the game Metroid Dread and the journey Samus is going to have to go on? Both the physical fight she's putting up on ZDR and then also the internal battle. I think that that's something that a lot of people are letting get lost in the kind of shuffle of information and excitement about Metroid Dread. Yeah, I'm excited for the gameplay and I'm excited for the story and I'm excited to power up and upgrade and do all the Metroid things. But I also very much, I'm invested in Samus. She's my favorite video game character. And I'm somebody who's cared about all of the steps she's gone on throughout her journey. This woman has been put through hell in her entire life, ever since she lost her parents as a baby. And now in Metroid Dread, she's clearly going to be going through some kind of internal, biological, and emotional war or battle within herself. And I'm really excited to see how that plays out. I mean, she's dealing with all of the trauma and events of her life, and she's also now dealing with being part human, part Chozo, part X, and part Metroid. That's crazy, man, and I really hope that part of the story Mercury Steam is telling has to do with what Samus is dealing with internally. Not just, oh look, big bad enemies and robots and monsters, I have to fight and shoot them and kill them, but also, what am I going through within myself? And so, man, you know what? I want to go on down that rabbit hole, but I think I need to save that for a different Metroid conversation for some time down the road, because I have a lot of really cool thoughts and theories about what's going on there. So for now, I think it's safest to just leave this as it is. This is what we got today. This is what I saw, how I'm kind of breaking down some of this teaser and this bit of info from the Metroid Dread report. Obviously, I want to hear what you guys think about my own theories and discussion here, and I want to hear your own opinions, so please feel free to discuss that stuff below. And with that, this video is a wrap. Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob, Overlook 2 Review, and I'll catch you next time on another video.